Hello learners, good to see you in this video on the topic Existentialism, which comes under the course Fundamentals of Philosophy, Unit 14, titled Existentialism. This is the second video on existentialism. Today we will talk about the key existentialist thinkers' view on existentialism. Soren Kierkegaard, known as the father of existentialism, Kierkegaard explored themes of fate, despair, and individuality. He believed that truth is subjective and that individuals must take a leap of faith to find meaning. Soren Kierkegaard, a Danish philosopher and theologian, is often regarded as one of the founding figures of existentialism. Although he predates the formal existentialist movement of the 20th century, Kierkegaard's existentialism revolves around the themes of individual subjectivity, anxiety, despair, freedom, faith, and the search for authentic existence. His work primarily focuses on the human condition in the context of Christianity, emphasizing the individual's relationship with God and the paradoxes of existence. The concept of subjectivity as truth, Kierkegaard emphasizes the importance of subjectivity in understanding the human experience. For him, truth is not an objective or universal concept, but something deeply personal and subjective. The individual's inner experience, feelings, and relationship with existence are paramount in understanding reality. Truth is subjectivity. This famous phrase encapsulates Kierkegaard's view that objective knowledge or abstract philosophy is less significant than the personal lived truth of the individual. He argues that true meaning and fulfillment come from confronting the self and embracing one's inner struggles and experiences. He has talked about anxiety and despair. Anxiety, the concept of anguish. Kierkegaard introduces the idea of anguish as a fundamental aspect of human existence. Anxiety arises from the individual's awareness of their absolute freedom and the possibility of making choices that define their existence. It is the existential recognition that life has no predetermined purpose and one must face the responsibility of self-creation. The dread of freedom, this existential anxiety comes from the realization that the individual is free to make choices, but this freedom also opens up a vast range of possibilities, some of which may lead to despair or nihilism. Anxiety for a Kierkegaard is not just a feeling but an existential condition, as awareness of one's freedom in the face of an uncertain, predictable future. Despair. Despair is a condition of the self. Kierkegaard views despair as a form of alienation from the self. It arises when individuals fail to recognize their true nature or relationship with God. Despair can take different forms, including the despair of not being true to oneself, the despair of not accepting one's finite nature, or the despair of failing to recognize one's dependence on God. Stages of despair. Kierkegaard categorized despair into three stages. The aesthetic stage. In this stage, individuals seek pleasure and satisfaction, avoiding the deeper questions of existence. Despair arises from the superficiality of this existence. The ethical stage. Here, individuals strive for moral responsibility and self-definition. However, despair still exists if they fail to align their actions with their true self or with a deeper spiritual purpose. The religious stage, the third one, the final stage, involves embracing the idea of a personal relationship with God. Despair is overcome by acknowledging one's dependence on the divine and recognizing that true fulfillment comes through faith, not through individual striving alone. The leap of faith, faith in paradox. Kierkegaard is perhaps best known for his concept of the leap of faith, which reflects his belief in the need for a personal, subjective commitment to believe in God. For Kierkegaard, faith is not rational or something that can be proven, but rather it requires a leap beyond reason. The absurdity of faith. Kierkegaard acknowledges the paradox of Christianity, believing in the divine while recognizing that such belief goes against reason. The leap of faith is a personal decision to embrace the absurdity of faith, accepting the contradictions and uncertainties inherent in religious faith or belief. Existential commitment, the leap of faith, represents an existential commitment to a belief or choice despite the lack of evidence or certainty. It is an act of defiance against the absurd and an embrace of individual freedom to make profound personal commitments. The individual and the crowd. Individualism and authenticity. Kierkegaard emphasizes the importance of individuality and authentic existence. He is critical of the crowd and the tendency for individuals to lose themselves in societal conventions or collective identities. For Kierkegaard, authentic existence is found in individual reflection, personal responsibility, and the recognition of one's existential freedom. The Knight of Faith, in his book Fear and Trembling, Kierkegaard describes the Knight of Faith as the ideal figure who embraces a deeply personal relationship with God, taking the leap of faith despite the absurdity of existence. The Knight of Faith is an individual who chooses the path of true spiritual fulfillment, even if it requires going against the expectations of society or conventional norms. The absurd and paradox, the absurdity of existence. Kierkegaard's philosophy is centered around the paradoxes of existence, especially as they relate to the individual's relationship with God. He argues that faith in the divine cannot be based on reason or evidence, but rather on a leap into the unknown. This paradox, the tension between reason and faith, illustrates the fundamental absurdity of existence. The God-man paradox. Kierkegaard is known for his exploration of the paradox of the God-man, particularly in his interpretation of Christ's incarnation. The idea that God become human, living among us and suffering, is an existential paradox that cannot be logically reconciled. For Kierkegaard, this paradox is central to understanding human existence and fate. Kierkegaard's critique of modernity and Hegelianism, rejection of systematic philosophy. Kierkegaard was critical of Hegel's systematic philosophy. While sought to explain everything through irrational objective structures, he felt that this approach ignored the subjective individual experience of existence, reducing human life to abstract categories. For Kierkegaard, true understanding comes from confronting life's uncertainties, paradoxes, and personal challenges, not through grand intellectual systems. Critique of modernity. Kierkegaard was also critical for the modern emphasis on rationality, technology, and social conformity. He argued that these forces alienate individuals from their true selves and undermine the capacity for authentic existence. In his works, he calls for a return to personal introspection, individuality, and a deeper connection with religious faith. The concept of despair and the self as a process. Kierkegaard believes that the self is not a static entity but a process that involves continuous choice, struggle, and self-realization. Despair arises when one fails to reconcile the tension between the finite self and the infinite possibilities of human existence. The journey toward overcoming despair is about recognizing this tension and embracing it in order to achieve self-realization. Selfhood in relation to God. Kierkegaard suggests that true selfhood is only achieved in a relationship with God where the individual recognizes their dependence on the divine. Despair can only be overcome by embracing one's spiritual identity, acknowledging human limitations, and committing to faith. Kierkegaard's influence on existentialism, influence on later thinkers. Kierkegaard's ideas profoundly influenced existential philosophers such as Jean-Paul Sartre, Martin Heidegger, and Simone de Beauvoir. His exploration of anxiety, despair, freedom, subjectivity, and fate provided a foundation for the 20th century existentialist movement. Existential themes. Kierkegaard's themes of individual responsibility, the search for meaning, the confrontation with freedom, and the need for personal commitment all become central elements in existentialist thought. His emphasis on subjective truth and the individual's relationship with the divine influence the way existentialists think about fate, meaning, and authenticity. Soren Kierkegaard's existentialism is a philosophy that places the individual at the center of the human experience, focusing on personal freedom, anxiety, despair, and the quest for authentic existence. He emphasizes the subjective nature of truth and the importance of personal responsibility in the face of life's uncertainties through concepts like anxiety, despair, the leap of faith, and individuality. Provides a framework for understanding the complexities and paradoxes of human existence. His ideas remain foundational in the study of existentialism, influencing both philosophy and theology. Friedrich Nietzsche, he was famous for declaring God is dead. Nietzsche emphasized the decline of traditional moral frameworks and the need for individuals to create their own values. His concept of Ubermans challenges individuals to rise above mediocrity and live creatively. Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher, is considered one of the most significant figures in existentialist thought. Even though he did not explicitly identify as an existentialist, his work challenges traditional philosophical ideas, particularly those related to morality, religion, and human nature, and presents a radical version of individual freedom, self overcoming, and the rejection of conventional systems of meaning. Nietzsche's existentialism is concerned with the creative of meaning in a world that is devoid of inherent purpose, advocating for a life that embraces individual creativity, strength, and authenticity. The death of God and the crisis of meaning, the death of God or God is dead. Nietzsche is famously known for declaring that God is dead. It doesn't mean that the God is dead. A metaphorical assertion that reflects the decline of traditional religious and metaphysical beliefs in the modern world. This statement symbolizes the collapse of the religious over worldview that once provided meaning, purpose, and moral order. Without the guiding framework of religion, individuals must confront the void of meaning and the absence of inherent values. The crisis of nihilism, Nietzsche sees the death of God is leading to a profound existential crisis, a period of nihilism in which individuals question the meaning of life, the purpose of existence, and the value of moral codes. Nihilism for Nietzsche represents a dangerous and potentially destructive force in society as it leads people to despair or resignation in the face of meaninglessness. The Overman or Superman, the concept of Superman for Nietzsche is his solution to the crisis of nihilism. The Superman is an individual who has transcended conventional moral values, religious beliefs, and societal norms. This person creates their own values, lives authentically, and embraces life in all its complexity and suffering. The will to power central to Nietzsche's idea of the Superman is the will to power, which refers to the fundamental drive in humans to assert their strength, creativity, and individuality. The Superman harnesses this will to power to shape their own destiny and overcome the limitations imposed by traditional beliefs and societal constraints. Self overcoming the Superman or Obersman is not a static ideal but a dynamic process of self overcoming. Nietzsche advocates for continual growth, the challenge of existing limitations, and the pursuit of personal challenge. The Ubermans represents the fullest realization of human potential marked by independence, strength, and the rejection of external authorities. External recurrence, the concept of external recurrence, one of Nietzsche's most provocative ideas in that of eternal recurrence, the idea that every moment of our lives will be repeated definitely throughout eternity. Nietzsche asks Nietzsche asks whether we could affirm our lives if they were to be repeated over and over again without change. Affirmation of life, the recurrence, the eternal recurrence challenges individuals to embrace their lives fully and authentically. Nietzsche proposes that the ultimate test of life affirmation is whether one can live in such a way that they would gladly repeat their actions for eternity. This idea serves as a call to embrace one's life, flaws and all, and to live with courage and patience. Master slave morality. Master morality, Nietzsche distinguishes between two types of morality, that is, master morality and slave morality. Master morality is the value system of the strong, creative, and independent individuals who define their own values based on power, excellence, and vitality. In master morality, good is associated with strength, nobility, and self assertion. Slave morality, on the other hand, is a value system rooted in resentment and the inversion of traditional values. It arises among the weak and oppressed who cannot assert their own power, so they create moral codes that praise meekness, humility, and self sacrifice. Nietzsche argues that slave morality has been historically dominant in Western culture, particularly in Christianity, and has led to the repression of human potential and vitality. Revolution of values, Nietzsche calls for a revolution of values in which individuals reject slave morality and embrace a more life affirming set of values based on strength, creativity, and the will to power. He critiques traditional morality for for stifling human flourishing and advocates for a radical rethinking of what is considered good. The will to power, the fundamental drive, Nietzsche's will to power is one of the most central and complex concepts. He argues that human beings are driven by a fundamental will to assert power, influence, and creativity. This will is not simply a desire for domination over others, but a more general drive for domination over others, but a more general drive for self expression, personal growth, and the realization of one's potential. Beyond survival, Nietzsche's will to power goes beyond the mere survival instinct, proposing that humans seek to shape and master their environment in ways that are uniquely personal and creative. The will to power is an expression of vitality and strength, motivating individuals to overcome obstacles and create new forms of meaning and value in their lives. Nietzsche and the individual, the primacy of the individual. Nietzsche's philosophy places the individual at the center of existence, rejecting systems of thought that prioritize collective ideals or universal truths. He criticizes a herd mentality which promotes conformity and mediocrity and champions the idea that each person must create their own values and meaning in life. Authenticity and individuality, Nietzsche encourages individuals to break free from societal constraints and live authentically, making choices that reflect their true desires, not the expectations of others. Authenticity for Nietzsche involves embracing one's uniqueness, strength, and creative potential regardless of societal norms or traditional morality. Nietzsche's critique of religion is critique of Christianity. Nietzsche is famously critical of Christianity, which he sees as a manifestation of slave morality. He argues that Christian values, particularly the emphasis on meekness, humility, and self sacrifice, undermine the vitality and potential of the human spirit. Christianity, in his view, promotes a life denying morality that denies the individual's will to power and self realization. Rejection of the afterlife. Nietzsche also rejects the Christian notion of the afterlife, arguing that it detracts from the importance of the present life. He sees the promise of salvation and eternal life as a way to distract individuals from fully engaging with their current existence. Nietzsche's existentialism calls for the affirmation of life here and now rather than looking for fulfillment in the imagined future or afterlife. Nietzsche's influence on existentialism impact on 20th century thinkers. Nietzsche's ideas about freedom, individualism, the will to power, and the rejection of traditional morality had a profound influence on later existentialist philosophers, including Sartre, Heidegger, and Camus. Nietzsche's critique of religion and morality, as well as his emphasis on personal responsibility and authenticity, are foundational themes in existential thought. The existential challenge of meaning, Nietzsche's notion of the will to power, and his insistence on the creation of meaning in a meaningless world, resonate strongly with existentialist concerns about human freedom, the absurd, and the search for authenticity. Friedrich Nietzsche's existentialism presents a radical vision of human life centered on individual freedom, the rejection of traditional moral values, and the creation of personal meaning. His concepts of the overman or superman, the will to power, eternal recurrence, and the revaluation of values challenge individuals to embrace their full potential, face the crisis of meaning with courage, and live authentically in a world that offers no inherent purpose. Nietzsche's philosophy emphasizes the need for the self overcoming creativity and strength in the face of a world without inherent meaning or divine guidance. Now, we will discuss about the famous existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. Sartre introduced the idea of the freedom, where individuals are condemned to be free. He coined the term where fate to describe the self-deception people use the escape and responsibility of freedom. He is famous for his book Being and Nothingness, where he talks about the existential themes like freedom, consciousness, being in itself, being for others, consciousness, nothingness, etc. Jean-Paul Sartre was a French philosopher, playwright, and novelist who is widely regarded as one of the key figures in existentialism. His work, deeply concerned with human existence, human freedom, responsibility, and the search for meaning in an indifferent and often absurd world, developed through his philosophy of phenomenology and was influenced by both Marxism and existential psychology. Sartre's existentialism emphasizes the primacy of individual freedom and the burden of choice, as well as the importance of creating one's own values in a world devoid of inherent meaning. His famous existence precedes essence, the key concept Sartre's existentialism is famously encapsulated in the idea that existence precedes essence, that we have already discussed in the first video. This means that human beings do not have a predetermined nature or essence. Rather, they first exist, and through their actions, choices, and decisions, they create their own essence. There is no inherent human nature or divine blueprint. Humans are free to save themselves. Rejection of essentialism. He has rejected this, contrasts sharply with traditional philosophical or religious views that suggest humans are born with a specific essence or purpose. Here, Sartre's existentialism is a direct challenge to essentialism, which argues that a person's nature or purpose is preordained. Radical freedom and responsibility. Sartre had talked about absolute freedom. Sartre argues that humans are radically free, meaning they are not determined by external forces such as nature, society, or God. Freedom for Sartre is the defining characteristic of human existence. While external conditions may influence individuals, they are always free to choose their actions. The burden of freedom. With this freedom comes immense responsibility. Sartre emphasizes that individuals are responsible for every aspect of their lives, including their actions, thoughts, and the meaning they assign to the world. This responsibility can be overwhelming, as it means that individuals cannot blame their circumstances or past experiences for their choices. Freedom and anxiety. Sartre's concept of anxiety or anguish arises from the realization of the radical freedom, the recognition that one is entirely responsible for their choices and actions can be paralyzing. This anxiety stems from the fact that, in Sartre's view, there is no fixed point of reference for humans to rely on to determine right and wrong. The look and objectification of the self, the concept of the look. Sartre develops the concept of the look to explain how individuals become aware of themselves, how they are conscious about themselves as objects in the eyes of the others, how they recognize the being for others. This objectification occurs when one is aware of being observed, which alienates individuals from their authentic selves. The objectification of the self in the gaze of another person, the self becomes an object. Yes, for the other person, the other one person is always the other person. So here, being for itself and being for others are connected to each other. This experience of being looked at strive the individual of their subjectivity, reducing them to an objectified thing. Sartre believes that dynamic plays a crucial role in the formation of self identity, and this tension between subjectivity and objectification is a fundamental aspect of the human condition. Bad faith Sartre uses the concept of bad faith to describe an act of self deception where individuals deny their radical freedom and responsibility in order to escape the anxiety associated with making choices. Bad faith involves living inauthentically as individuals attempt to avoid the discomfort of confronting their freedom by adopting predefined roles or societal norms. The absurd and the meaning of life, absurdity of existence, Sartre's existentialism, like that of Camus, is concerned with the absurdity of life in a universe without God or inherent meaning. Humans are left to create their own meaning. Sartre argues that this absurdity arises from the confrontation between our desire for meaning and the indifference of the universe. Creating meaning, unlike Camus, who propose a more nihilistic response to absurdity, Sartre insists that individuals must create meaning in a meaningless world. This is done through conscious, free choice and the commitment to personal responsibility. Life may have no inherent meaning, but individuals can find meaning through their actions and the way they engage with the world. Bad faith and self-deception. The concept of bad faith, Sartre's notion of bad faith, is central to his existentialism, as we know. It refers to the act of self-deception or lying to oneself in order to escape the anxiety caused by absolute freedom and responsibility. Individuals in bad faith deny their freedom and responsibility by adopting rules, social identities, or religious beliefs that absolve them to their choices. Examples of bad faith. One common example Sartre gives in that of a waiter who adopt the role of a waiter so completely that they forget their personal freedom and individuality. They identify so strongly with the role that they cease to recognize their own freedom in the situation. Bad faith is a form of existential avoidance where one tries to escape the burden of freedom by embracing pre-made systems of meaning, authenticity, and the self-authentic existence. Authenticity in such existentialism involves living in accordance with one's true self, acknowledging one's radical freedom and taking full responsibility for one's actions. Authenticity is achieved when individuals stop living in bad faith and instead embrace their freedom to make choices, defining their own values and creating their own meaning in the world. Living for oneself. Authenticity means living for oneself and not allowing external influences like societal expectations or religious dictates to define who one is. It involves a continuous process of self-creation and self-examination. Sartre's view on other people and relationship, the problem of the other. Sartre explores the idea that other people are both a source of freedom and a source of oppression. While others validate our existence by recognizing us, they also objectify us in their gaze. As described in the loop, this creates a tension between the desire to be free and recognition that others limit our freedom. Interpersonal relationship in Sartre's philosophy, relationship with others can often be conflictual and as individuals assert their own freedom while simultaneously being subjected to the freedom of others. However, Sartre also suggests that true freedom can be realized in authentic relationship, where both parties acknowledge each other's freedom without attempting to objectify or control one another. Sartre's influence on Marxism and politics, existentialism and Marxism. While Sartre's existentialism focuses on individual freedom, he was also concerned with social and political issues. In his later work, Sartre sought to reconcile existentialism with Marxism, arguing that the individual freedom is shaped by social and economic conditions. For Sartre, authentic freedom is not only about individual self-realization but also about the ability to transcend oppressive structures such as capitalism. engage existentialism, Sartre argues that intellectuals and individuals should engage actively with society to change the conditions that limit human freedom. His political activism was an extension of his existential philosophy, emphasizing that individuals are not isolated from their world and that personal freedom must be connected with collective liberation. Sartre's existentialism in literature and drama, existential themes in Sartre's literature, existentialism in theater, like Haley's other people, highlights the tension between individual freedom and the oppression experienced in the gaze of others. Sartre uses drama to illustrate his philosophical ideas about freedom, choice, and the existential dilemmas faced by individuals. Sartre's influence and legacy, existentialist movement. Sartre is a key figure in the existential movement, and his work is profoundly influenced 20th century philosophy, literature, psychology, and political thought. His existentialism, especially the themes of freedom and responsibility and authenticity, shaped much of contemporary thought of human existence. Philosophical legacy. Sartre's influence extends to a wide range of thinkers, including Simone de Beauvoir, Merleau-Ponty, and Albert Camus. His ideas continue to resonate in modern discussions on existential freedom, social justice, and personal responsibility. Jean-Paul Sartre's existentialism presents a radical version of human freedom, responsibility, and meaning. His philosophy asserts that existence possesses essence, meaning that humans are free to define themselves through their choices. Sartre emphasizes the burden of freedom, the challenges of authenticity, and the importance of living without self-deception or reliance on external systems of meaning. His work remains foundational to existentialist thought and continues to inspire debates on individualism, freedom, and the search for meaning in an indifferent world. Martin Heidegger's concept of Dasein focuses on the nature of being and the importance of living authentically. He explores how individuals confront morality and time. Martin Heidegger was a German philosopher whose work laid the foundation of much of 20th century existentialism and phenomenology and existential phenomenology. Although Heidegger is often considered a precursor to existentialism, his ideas differ significantly from thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir. Heidegger's existential philosophy is concerned with the nature of being, human existence, Dasein, and the implications of living in a world defined by finitude, time, and death. His work is deeply ontological, focusing on what it means to be, and this fundamental concern with being provides a distinct approach to existentialism. The question of being, ontology, and the question of being, Heidegger's existentialism begins with what he calls the Shentrack, the question of being, unlike traditional philosophy, which is primarily addressing beings, entities. Heidegger is concerned with the questions of being itself, being it itself. What does it mean to be? How do we understand the existence of things, including ourselves? Heidegger's quest for the meaning of being is the central focus of his work, particularly in his seminal text, Being and Time. In Being and Time, Heidegger introduces the concept of Dasein, which refers to human existence. Dasein is the being that is aware of its own being, and in this self-awareness confronts the fundamental questions of existence, such as the nature of time, death, and finitude. Dasein, human existence, as being in the world. Being in the world for Heidegger, human beings are defined by their being in the world. This concept refers to the idea that we do not exist as isolated, detached subject, but are always enwrapped within the world, interacting with people, objects, and the environment. Our existence is not simply a private or internal experience, it is fundamentally relational and situated in the world. Finitude and temporal existence. Dasein is characterized by its awareness of finitude and temporality. Heidegger argues that human beings are always aware of their own mortality, and this awareness shapes how we live our lives. Unlike other beings in the world, humans are conscious of their own death and the finite nature of their existence. This awareness leads to a sense of urgency and potential for authenticity, as individuals are faced with the need to live a life that matters within the context of their temporal existence. Authenticity and inauthenticity. Authentic existence, Heidegger distinguishes between authentic and inauthentic modes of existence. An authentic life is one where individuals confront the truth of their finitude and make choices based on their understanding of their own mortality. In this mode, people live in full awareness of their freedom and responsibility to save their lives. They are not simply swept along by social norms or the pressure of everyday life, but act in ways that are true or their own being. In authentic existence, in contrast, inauthenticity arises when individuals avoid confronting the reality of their finitude, choosing instead of life according to social conventions, external expectations, or a false sense of security. Heidegger refers to this as fallenness, where people retreat into the crowd or become absorbed trivial activities that distract them from the deeper questions of existence. This inauthentic mode of living is a form of evasion of the self and its true potential. Being toward death, that is an ultimate horizon for Heidegger's. One of the key elements of authentic existence is being toward death. This concept refers to the way in which our awareness of death shapes defines our existence. That is the ultimate limit that human beings face, and it is something that each individual must confront alone. Heidegger argues that acknowledging death and accepting it as an inevitable part of life can lead a more authentic existence where individuals live with a sense of urgency and purpose. Death and freedom is not merely an event that happens at the end of life, but it is the condition of possibility for true freedom. The awareness of our mortality forces us to confront the fact that our time is finite, and this realization empowers us to live with greater intention and authenticity. By accepting that, we free ourselves from the distractions of everyday life and open ourselves to a deeper, more meaningful existence. The role of language in Heidegger's existentialism places significant emphasis on language in his philosophy. He believes that language is not just a tool for communication, but is the very medium through which being is revealed. In On the Way to Language, he explores how language shapes our understanding of the world and our existence. Language is not a neutral means of expression, but it intertwined with the way we interpret and experience the world. Martin Heidegger's existentialism, through often grouped with other existential thinkers, represents a distinctive approach to understanding human existence. His philosophy, centered around the question of being and the concept of Dasein, focuses on the awareness of our finitude, temporality, and the role of language in revealing the truth of existence. Heidegger's exploration of authenticity, the significance of death, and the dangers of technological inframing has had a profound impact on existentialism, phenomenology, and contemporary philosophy. His work continues to challenge us to reflect on our existence in a world where the meaning of being remains elusive yet over present. Albert Camus examined the absurd and argued that life's lack inherent meaning does not diminish its life works. Like the myth of Sisyphus, encourage rebellion against despair and embracing life fully. Critics of existentialism. While influential existentialism has faced criticism, subjectivity, the movement's emphasis on individual experiences and subjective truth risks leading to the relativism and nihilism, where no universal truths exist. Pessimism. Critics argues that existentialism focus on alienation, anxiety, and absurdity overlooks the positive and communal aspects of human life. Overemphasis on individualism. Some contend that existentialism neglects the importance of social relationship and collective identity. Relevance of existentialism today is existentialism remains highly relevant in modern life, addressing universal concerns, personal values, encourages individuals to reflect deeply on their beliefs, priorities, and life goals. Authenticity promotes living true to oneself in an age dominated by social media superficiality and conformity. Navigating uncertainty, others tools for confronting existential anxiety, adapting to change, and finding meaning in a rapidly evolving world. The existentialist framework provides resilience and courage to face challenges, embrace freedom, and live authentically amidst uncertainty. Existentialism challenges individuals to confront life's fundamental questions, encourages deep reflection on meaning, purpose, and mortality. Freedom and responsibility inspires ownership of personal choices and actions. Authenticity advocates embracing life's uncertainties and crafting a meaningful self-defined existence. By embracing existentialist principles, we can navigate the complexities of life with awareness, creativity, and courage, creating a personal sense of purpose in a seemingly indifferent world. Soren Kierkegaard, existentialist philosophy. Existential philosophy presents a deeply personal and introspection approach to understanding human existence. His emphasis on subjectivity challenges traditional notions of truth, arguing individuals to seek meaning through personal experience rather than objective reasoning. His exploration of anxiety and despair highlights the struggles of self-awareness and the burden of freedom, revealing the existential tension between individuality and fate. The leap of faith is Kierkegaard's ultimate solution of despair, requires a bold commitment of belief beyond rationality. Finally, his individuality reinforces his vision of personal responsibility and self-discovery. Through his work, Kierkegaard lays the foundation for existentialist thought, influencing later philosophers and continuing to inspire those grappling in the complexities of life, faith, freedom, and selfhood. The importance of existentialism is significant because it encourages individuals to take responsibilities for their own lives, make authentic choices, and find personal meaning in the world. The lake's inherent purpose. It highlights themes like freedom, responsibility, authenticity, anxiety, etc. Empowers individuals to embrace their freedom, confront challenges, and create their own meaning, ultimately leading to greater personal growth and a deeper understanding of life. Thank you.